All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the second time in a week. I know Clipper Blog Live fans have been wondering when we're going to get this thing consistent. Well, we're here. We did a win earlier in the week. Milwaukee Bucks. The Clippers go to San Antonio, and they take an L in the first round rematch. We've got Trevor Zickrath of 48 Minutes of Hell. I'm Law Murray, representing the Clipper blog. Spurs 115, Clippers 107. Trevor, you weren't here for the beginning of this game, but game lasted long enough for you. Am I right?
Yeah, I was at work, so I had my eye on it, but I was a little distracted. I'm here on the left coast, just like you all. So I was worried I was only going to catch the fourth, and I caught a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah. So we're not going to ignore the elephant in the room. This game, it lasted for a while. It did not go into overtime. LeBron not here to knock anybody out from the sidelines. It was just a long free throw party. The Clippers, 40 free throw attempts tonight. San Antonio Spurs had 30 personal fouls. It's more fouls than they've had in any game this season.
I'm pretty sure they averaged 17.
That's crazy. That's basically like we're gonna have everyone foul twice as much as they used to, just about. It worked out for them, but Jeff Van Gundy went on a rant, and that's probably what you guys are all talking about. We even have it in our rundown. Expose the farce. Trevor, how do you feel about the hashtag? First of all,
I mean, I think like a lot of intelligent fans, I'm of two minds. A, if you could make your free throws, this wouldn't be an issue. But B, it just really like, I guess if the Spurs, the way I look at it is just it kills your offense because right before they went hacker DeAndre the second time, the Spurs were rolling. They were on that 11-0 run, and then DeAndre came back in and they started fouling. And I didn't even realize they got in the bonus as fast as they did. I looked up and they were in the bonus. So what the hell did that happen? But it killed the momentum that they had, and then all of a sudden the Clippers are back within 4, like really fast. And so I understand the rationalization because it probably kept them in the game in the third quarter when the Clippers were rolling a little bit. But I don't know, like it derailed things in the fourth quarter for them, at least momentarily.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I know the Spurs, there's a reason they stopped fouling after what amounted to over a quarter. And check this out, the Spurs went on some good runs. They had a 9-6 run, and that's 6 points by the Clippers, all free throws, no field goals. That was the majority of the last 3 minutes of the third quarter. The Spurs started the fourth quarter on an 11-3 run, which was a slog fest. My goodness, it was pretty much the first half of the fourth quarter. Again, 3 free throws, no field goals for the Clippers, and then a 9-4 run by the Spurs in the second half of the fourth quarter. When you look at it, we're talking about single field goals separating those runs. So as much as it didn't work out for the Spurs, you imagine you're the Clippers, you're rolling. Chris Paul, he had an outstanding game, especially the first 3 quarters. I think he was at 22 points after 3. Chris never got on a roll again. He only finished with 27, a game high, mind you.
Yep.
But Tony Parker in the fourth quarter, he has 10 of his 21 points in the fourth quarter. So you look at this in a lot of different ways. You mentioned it didn't work out for the Spurs offensively. It certainly didn't work out for the Clippers offensively. They couldn't make free throws and they couldn't make dunks. It was bad all around. It obviously pissed off Jeff Van Gundy. Even Mike Breen was like, you know what? ESPN, NBA, we're partners. Let's go ahead and completely call them out. They called the Philadelphia 76ers out, the one in now I guess 26 76ers. I don't think they're going to get 6 or 7 wins this year, man. Like it's looking that bad for them.
Yep.
But they were saying the 76ers should just completely just keep fouling, and when they match up, the Clippers have to play tomorrow at Houston. They stay in Texas. When they play next month, Jeff Van Gundy is like, hey, they got a national TV game. JB Bickerstaff, you do it too. Go ahead and keep fouling. And And again, it's like you can say, I think it's easy for the fan on the couch to say, oh, you just need to make your free throws. DeAndre can probably make a fair amount of free throws. If he was just like getting in a pickup game, somewhere in
Yep.
California, I'm sure it would have to probably be a rec league game because no one in pickup shoots free throws. If they did, nobody would be talking about free throws. Trust me. But I mean, it's at the point where people are like confusing a player's skill set and ability and situation in a game with how hard a player works. And I just think that's unfair and missing the point at the same time.
Well, we hear about it all the time, like Shaq, whether it's Shaq or Dwight or DeAndre now, it's like these guys, when they're in practice, 90 out of 100 or, whatever the number is that they always give us, they're 15 in a row or whatever. And so, yeah, you're right. It's not a question of skill. It's a lot of other factors.
What would you do, Trevor, if you are we're not even going to say you're the commissioner. Let's say you're like the backup commissioner, the dude that calls second round in the NBA draft. How are you bringing this to the commissioner? State a case for what you're suing, because I don't have a problem with it, but obviously we're leading Clipper Blog Live off with the fact that DeAndre misses double-digit free throws when he's allowed to. So clearly there's too many fans and too many stakeholders that are just dissatisfied with watching, 7-footers miss free throws. So what is your case in the next meeting with the commissioner?
Well, first of all, deputy commissioner is the best job. You get cheered every time at the draft. Nothing's ever your fault. Really, the only time your name gets uttered is when you're at the draft, especially if you nail the names of foreign players. So, first of all, I would love that job. Second of all, I don't know. It's part of me is like, do nothing. Like, I always feel like we overreact in these situations because they are, if you really look at it, these are isolated incidents in the grand scheme of things. But like, it could get worse. You're saying they play the Rockets next. Like, that could turn into DeAndre getting hacked, Dwight getting hacked, Clint Capella getting hacked, which is the worst hack of them all because he, I think he's shooting 27% from free throws.
Might as well throw Josh Smith in there.
Yeah, might as well throw Josh Smith in there.
Reunion.
So, yeah. So it's tough, but I do like Van Gundy brings us some good ideas. Bill Simmons brings up some good ideas sometimes. Maybe it's like an intentional, like when they do intentional fouls, you get the ball out as well, or what do they call? I'm blanking on guys out on the fast break if he's not
clear path.
Clear path. Thank you. I kept wanting to call it breakaway foul. It's not correct. Like that. It's 2 free throws plus the ball, or it's a free throw plus the ball, or you get to, the coach of the player that got fouled gets to pick who shoots the free throws. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I don't think like a fix is absolutely necessary because I do think it's an isolated incident for the most part. These guys can work on if they can get their heads right or whatever. If they can get above, say, 60% from a free throw line, it's not going to be an issue. So,
yeah, my thing is people keep bringing it to the entertainment factor, and my thing is there's a lot of NBA teams that wouldn't qualify as entertaining for them. It's just there's a lot of people that want to watch a game, and then the game that was as great as this game was going. Again, the offenses were humming. The Clippers were shooting 60% from the field for a long part of this game, and the Spurs were just right behind them. There was no pull away. The thing that changed it all was Popovich, people will not ever get on Pop, but Pop will complain and Pop will say, man, I hate this, I hate that. But Pop keeps it real. He's like, I hate it, but I'm going to do it if it means I'm going to win, if it means an advantage. Greg Popovich is to the NBA what Bill Belichick is to the NFL. And that's the thing. It's like Pop is stubborn. He does what he needs to do. And his team got the win. This is 15-0. First team in NBA history, the San Antonio Spurs, to start a season winning their first 15 home games. That's an incredible feat. One that may be matched by another team that we'll unfortunately have to talk about later this show. But let's get off the free throw line. Literally, let's get off the free throw line and talk about this game a little bit more. I felt like LaMarcus Aldridge was the player of the game. His best game as a Spur, 26 points. He made 11 field goals. How do you feel like LaMarcus played, and what has been his contribution in this new wrinkle to the Spurs Clippers matchups?
Um, First of all, he was great, and I know we'll get to who I thought was the player of the game in a little bit, which was not LaMarcus, but I mean LaMarcus was right there. I think you're right. It was his best. It was his best game as a Spur because in other matchups they were probably playing teams that aren't on their level, and the Clippers are certainly, if they're not on the Spurs level, they're damn close. And it's just he just looks more and more comfortable, and I think the one thing that he brings is now him and Duncan are interchangeable as far as what they can do, like where they can put each other offensively. Before, I feel like when Thiago Splitter is a good example, but it goes back to other Spurs centers. Thiago was always the guy, like if they were doing some high-low stuff, Duncan was always the one on the block because Duncan was the only one with the skill and the size to be able to operate on the block on these high-low situations. Now they can just interchange whoever's got the better matchup. And so that's the thing. I mean, LaMarcus is an amazing basketball player, and what's really amazing is the versatility that both him and Duncan have to just be able to basically switch offensively and defensively, and it's really a problem for I think every other team in the league. Not to mention you've got the silent assassin patrolling the wings there, who can also go on the block, can also get down low. Kawhi Leonard, man, it's scary what that front line can become.
It's cool. Kawhi, well, can we discuss the impact that Kawhi is having? Like, do you feel like LaMarcus Aldridge being there has improved Kawhi Leonard's game?
Yeah. I mean, I think Kawhi was going to take a leap no matter what, but it's like now I think teams were ready to make Kawhi the focal point as far as like what their game plan was defensively, but you can't do that anymore because LaMarcus is close by. It's helping Tony Parker. Like Kawhi's evolution, Kawhi's ascent, and LaMarcus Aldridge's arrival have really helped each other out. And I think Tony Parker's also benefited the most from it because now the paint's open. He's just got so much more space. I mean, he's healthy, so that's the most important thing. Tony Parker's healthy, but I mean, LaMarcus is. I think he's really opened things up for all these guys.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, getting back to LaMarcus, you got a 13 rebound game from him. That's his fourth of this season. We're not even at Christmas. Thiago Splitter, he only had 13 games of at least 13 rebounds last year. You mentioned your player of the game being Tony Parker. Now, the Spurs have been blowing guys out. They don't really play in fourth quarters. So when we say this was one of Tony Parker's best fourth quarters, there's obviously that qualifier. But again, you look at how well Chris was playing before the fouls and how Tony outplayed him down the stretch. Just what was that dynamic like, having Parker be such a focal point to close this one out?
I mean, I think I just think back to last spring, last first round series. Parker looked like he was on one leg. He looked slow. The jumper wasn't there. Like nothing was working for him. So now it's like it's just so good to see him healthy. It's good to see him finish out game strong like that. And that's another benefit of having LaMarcus and Kawhi around. It's like it used to be like the dynamic used to be Tony would start the game hot, and then at somewhere along the way they'd start going to Duncan down low, and then like maybe Ginobili finishes it or Duncan would finish it because they were a little bit more fresh. Tony was running around and everything. He was the guy initiating the offense. Now Tony's kind of the guy who, if they need him to be, he can be the finisher because he can be the finisher in these games because he's a lot more fresh. He's healthy. He's getting so much more rest now, and when he's in there, he doesn't have to be relied upon to be the focal point. So it's really a positive moment for the Spurs right now to have Tony Parker playing like he is.
Yeah, and
I think this also from the Clippers aspect, Chris Paul was exhausted probably because he had Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard chasing him around the entire game. Now Chris Paul was great. He is one of my favorite players in the league. I love watching him. But man, it's just like, and then he's got to chase Tony around, or he's, he doesn't get a rest. Whereas Tony's never relied upon to guard the other team's best perimeter player. Sometimes Chris Paul is, and Parker doesn't get hounded by the other team's best perimeter player because you got to worry about Kawhi and then you got to worry about leaving Danny Green open. So I think that was also the kind of you could see it where Parker didn't run out of gas and Chris did, and I think that's because of what Chris had to do was dealing with defensively.
I mean, there was a great moment. Not great for people who obviously like the Clippers, but it was a great moment in the third quarter, a great shot where Chris had been getting buckets, just going off, and there was finally a timeout. Again, this game had a great flow to it. I know if you only caught the last, say, 15 to 20 minutes, it's hard to believe. I'm talking 15 to 20 minutes of game time, probably the last hour and a half of real time.
Yeah.
But there was this shot during a timeout. Chris is just slumped over. He looked like he had been in a 12-round championship prize fight, and Austin Rivers was just kind of holding on to him. He looked like an old, haggard man, and he was playing well. But it was like, man, it's 5 minutes left in the third quarter, and he's tired. He's exhausted. And it's like, the Spurs had the lineup, the length on the wing to be selective about their defensive matchups. The Warriors, they have that. Steph Curry doesn't guard the best player or the point guard all the time. They can hide him. They can afford to do that because you have a Klay Thompson. You have a Harrison Barnes. You have an Andre Iguodala. They even imagine coming off now starting Brandon Rush.
I know that's just the reemergence of Brandon Rush. It's so frustrating as a fan of another team.
Yeah, I mean, you look, those guys have as much to do, and that's why I asked about Kawhi Leonard. Those guys have as much to do with the defensive ability and the flexibility and just the emergence of everyone else on the roster. And Chris, offensively, there are options for the Clippers. Defensively, they are about as static as a team can get, and it kills them, especially in the fourth quarter. Which, let's just talk about the fourth quarter. My reason for not wanting to, harp on the free throws was I was looking at the other things. The Clippers, they could not buy a bucket. They missed about 10 of their first 11 field goals in the fourth. We already know the Spurs are as great as they are defensively all game long. They were struggling mightily for a long portion of this game. Yeah. But the Clippers don't defend well in the fourth quarter. They're bottom 5 defense in the fourth. And it just – they allowed 30 more points in the fourth quarter. What did you see that allowed the Spurs to get going offensively, even though they spent the first half of the quarter just – kind of going through the motions when the fouls were going on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, again, Tony's fresh legs really helped because he was able to just, like that three he hit with 2 seconds left on the shot clock. Fresh legs help because otherwise that's probably short, especially when he's got to rush it like that. So that helped. I think, LaMarcus had that one where he pinned Blake down low and Duncan found him, and even though the shot was off balance, LaMarcus was just so deep in the paint that he was able to get the shot to go up. And I think, again, we mentioned the Clippers depth not awesome, and I think Blake may have just been tired, and LaMarcus just beat him to a spot and Blake wasn't able to push him out of that spot so deep. So I think it may have been about the Clippers being tired as much as anything else, because you're right, man, first 3 quarters they couldn't miss. Everything looked great. And I was just thinking, man, this is going to be one of those nights. It doesn't matter what you do. Redick's hitting threes. Chris Paul can't miss, which Chris was still, he was like 8 for 14 and 9 for 9 from the line. So, I think the Clippers may have just gotten tired. And the Spurs did that to them, just wore them down. That's what the Spurs do. They don't screw up all that much. So.
Yeah, and the other thing that happened, the Spurs were struggling defending the 3 for a long portion of the game. The Clippers, they ended up overall making 10 out of 24. Unfortunately, in an 8-point loss in a game where they were stuck on the free throw line, literally stuck on the free throw line. And again, when you shoot threes, that's not the free throw line. You're not getting fouled. The only guy to make a fourth quarter three in this game, Blake Griffin. Of all people, Blake made his only three. Every other Clipper went 0 for 7 in the fourth quarter shooting threes. Again, like you look at the missed dunks, you look at the fact that they just couldn't they couldn't make threes, whether it was hurried situations or not. The only guy to have an assist in the fourth quarter was Chris Paul when you're featuring the best passing player over 6'8" in the NBA. And there's a lot of things in this game. I'm just trying to let the Clippers fans understand this, and people who just like talking about fouls and how they ruin the NBA and Christmas and everything else. This game was more than free throws. This game was one team finished, another team just didn't have enough. Let's go ahead and I do want to pitch one more question here. We're not exactly getting a whole lot of fan response for this show. It is Friday night, so totally understand. But there's this thing. The Clippers and the Spurs are one of the best teams in the league. Now, first round, everyone was talking about how divisions should be abolished, basically. They shouldn't matter. And so that's what happened. So here's a question that never gets asked, because when I feel like, especially the NBA media, when things get changed, there's a lot of celebration and not a lot of looking back and being like, oh, snap, what do we do? The regular season doesn't matter as much now, because the division games, which used to be like, hey, we win these division games, we have a leg up. Now there's just like, one less thing to worry about. The Spurs and Clippers only play 2 more times in the regular season. 2 more. Only one meeting in Los Angeles. The next one's not until February. They play at San Antonio again in March. Is this a big deal, or are we like looking at things like, man, we just knocked out divisions, but when you look at the conferences, there are still a few teams in the conference. You only play 3 instead of 4. Is that a big deal or no?
I mean, I think it's a little deal. I think just because it's so random. I think the Spurs might only play the Warriors 3 times this year, so it does seem like it's always like it just happens to fall. Like the years where it might need to matter, the teams only play each other 3 times. But you know what? That also kind of settles head-to-heads if that ever comes down to it. You know, like three games, you don't need to worry about tiebreakers or anything like that. So I think that's one positive to it. But yeah, I don't know. The other funny thing about just what last year's first round did, it's just like if the Spurs won one more game, whether it was some game to the Knicks they blew or that last game of the year where they lost to the Pelicans, it's like we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But it just shows that every regular season game can matter at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I love the regular season. The Warriors choked last Friday, so it lowered the intrigue a little bit to what this regular season had been before Christmas. But I've always hated when fans say season doesn't start until Christmas. It's like, nah, man, you got to get going. You got to figure out who your team is, especially when you look at this Clippers team. They got 9 new guys on this roster. Half of them play significant rotational minutes. And, I mean, every one of these games matter. You can learn a little bit of something from all of these games. So
what do you think of Wes getting the crunch time minutes at the wing? It's
a theme that we've been tracking at Clipper Blog for a little bit now. Who plays in the fourth quarter? I think even Jeff Van Gundy alluded to the fact that, hey, Chris Paul, J.J. Redick, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, that's your core. All those guys are exceptional players, top 10 at the very worst at their positions. And they have, again, small forward is, to me, the most critical position in the NBA, and that's the worst position, and it's been the worst position for the Clippers for several years now. And it's the worst lineup that they put out besides the all-bench lineup, which is asinine, is the lineups that have Jamal in there with the starters.
Yeah.
It's awful defensively. You didn't see that as much tonight. You didn't see that as much against the Milwaukee Bucks Wednesday night. And so they're experimenting. Wesley is the idea guy. I talked to Wes and it sucks. I feel bad for him because consistency always comes up. He knows it. I know it. The American people know it. And Wes would probably prefer to start, but he doesn't start because the Bahamute lineup is like, hey, let's have Luke in there against a bigger guy, and we can get some defense to start things off. And it allows you to be more flexible with the bench line because you don't need to play Luke more than 15 minutes if that's what it calls for. And so it's early. The advantage of the 82-game regular season is that these teams, they absolutely know who they are come playoff time because they play so much. So it's just using an extended audition to figure out what works. Tonight it didn't work so much. Wes didn't have an impact in the fourth quarter, but you never know with Wes. You never know with Lance. You never know with pretty much you don't know with 38-year-old Paul Pierce. You just know. It's not great. It's not even adequate, but it's not. That's not to say that's going to be the same case come the spring. San Antonio Spurs, though, they get the win, 8 points. We're going to move on without the show. The Clippers play again tomorrow night. I would say doubtful for Clipper Blog Live, and I'm not Jason Kidd. We're probably not going to have a show tomorrow, but we will cover it from Clipper Blog. Trevor, it was great having you for your Clipper Blog debut, man. I guess we can close and talk about the Warriors. Do you think the Spurs match up better with the Clippers? The Spurs match better than the Clippers against the Warriors, or
I don't know, man, because it's just like I want to believe that their big lineup can punish the Warriors' small lineup, but it's just imagining like the first missed, like LaMarcus takes a 15-footer and it's a long rebound, and then they're just off and running. It's just like you just got to make sure you're back on defense and everything else. And like the good thing about the Spurs is they don't gamble for offensive rebounds or anything like that. But against that small lineup, you almost have to. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think both the Spurs bench is so deep, and I do think there is some versatility on that front line, especially see what Boris could do against Draymond. Might have the quicks to stay in front of him a little bit, which I think when people think about Boris, they don't think about him being the quickest guy, but he's shifty. He's got good lateral movement, so we'll see. I don't know. Do you think the Clippers match up better against the Spurs or the Warriors? Because they've kind of had they didn't finish against the Warriors, but they've been really good against them for stretches.
Look, they didn't finish against the Spurs tonight either, and they knocked the Spurs out the first round last year. They would not have knocked the Warriors out the playoffs. I think Doc Rivers really likes to hang his hat on the fact that his team has beaten the last two teams to win NBA championships. Unfortunately, he beat them in the wrong damn seasons to beat them. So we saw the Clippers play the Warriors twice this season. It was the same result both games. They went up big. They didn't finish. They couldn't finish. The fourth quarter defense is the Clippers' Achilles heel. Not the bench, not the small forward position. It's the fourth quarter defense. If they clean that up, they clean the first three quarters up defensively. There is a switch with this team. But because of so many new pieces, and Doc, he said to Fred Katz earlier this month, hey, there's a bunch of players. That affects the guys who were here defensively as well. Defense is a team-oriented program. It's the thing that makes basketball basketball. It's the greatest separator in the game. If you can defend at a top 10 level, you have a shot to win a championship. If you do not, you significantly decrease your chances of contending. It's a tried and true formula. The entire history of the league, you can look it up. It doesn't matter what you do offensively if you can't defend. The Clippers, they've got 3 months to figure that out, or it won't matter if they face the Warriors, the Spurs, or one of these jabronis in the lower half of the Western Conference. It won't matter. They won't get through to the conference finals.
By the way, Law, halftime, Milwaukee's beating Golden State 70-58 right now.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will be our cue to end this show. Big graph for 48 minutes of hell. I'm Law Murray at Clipper Blog. Again, Clippers, they will play tomorrow night at Houston. The San Antonio Spurs, they will play Monday against the Pacers. I guess we're calling that the David West revenge game.
David West revenge game. Let's get it.
There you go. You heard it from Trevor. Again, happy holidays. We'll be back at some point And if we're not back before Christmas, well, Merry Christmas, and we will see you on the flip side.